I need you to put down whatever you are doing right now and watch this video to the end. Because what I am about to tell you involves something that sits in the freezer of almost every household in America. Something that millions of adults over 60 consume regularly at family gatherings on summer afternoons as a small comfort at the end of a long day, completely unaware that specific varieties of this food are doing something measurable and documented and deeply concerning inside their aging bodies. Not in theory, not in extreme quantities, in the amounts that most people would consider perfectly reasonable. I am talking about ice cream. And before you close this video thinking you already know what I'm going to say, too much sugar, too many calories, eat less of it, I need you to understand that what I am sharing today goes far deeper than that. This is not about indulgence. This is about specific chemical compounds, specific manufacturing processes, and specific ingredient combinations that are present in particular types of ice cream, and that interact with the aging body in ways that accelerate inflammation, disrupt the gut microbiome, impair cardiovascular function, and according to research published in peer-reviewed journals, may contribute to accelerated cognitive decline in adults over 60. The specific types that cause the most harm are not the ones most people suspect, and several of them are marketed explicitly as healthier alternatives. I am a physician and researcher who has spent decades studying how the aging body processes food differently from a younger body. The science I am sharing today is real, it is referenced, and the studies are linked in the description below. I am not here to eliminate joy from your life. I am here to give you the specific information you need to make choices that protect the decades of healthy living still ahead of you. Before we go further, tell me in the comments right now, how often do you eat ice cream? And do you typically go for the regular full-fat version, a low-fat alternative, or one of the newer protein or low-sugar varieties? Drop your age and your answer below. I read every single comment, everyone, and what you share shapes everything I create for this community. Here's what we are covering today. I am going to walk you through the most harmful types of ice cream, ranked from concerning all the way up to the single most damaging category that adults over 60 should avoid entirely. We are counting down from 5 to 1. And I am telling you right now, number 1 is not what you expect. It is a type of ice cream that has been aggressively marketed as a guilt-free, health-conscious choice. And the research says it is among the most biologically destructive frozen desserts on the market for the aging body. Stay with me through every point, because the information at number 1 could genuinely change a habit that is quietly doing more damage than you realize. Let us start with the biological context, because understanding why the aging body responds differently to these ingredients is essential to understanding why this matters so much specifically for adults over 60. After the age of 60, 3 things happen simultaneously inside your body that dramatically change how you process certain food compounds. First, your intestinal barrier becomes more permeable. The tight junctions holding your gut lining together weaken, allowing food-derived inflammatory compounds to enter your bloodstream more readily than they would in a younger body. Second, your liver's detoxification capacity declines by an estimated 30 to 40%, reducing your ability to process and clear synthetic compounds efficiently. Third, your baseline inflammatory state rises, what researchers call inflammaging, meaning your body is already operating with a higher inflammatory burden before you consume a single bite of food. Every inflammatory food you eat lands on an already compromised foundation. These 3 factors mean that ingredients which a 30-year-old body can process and clear with minimal consequence can produce measurably different and more harmful biological effects in a body over 60. This is not hypothetical. This is documented in the nutritional gerontology literature, and it is the reason that the types of ice cream I am about to describe are not simply unhealthy for everyone. They are specifically disproportionately harmful for adults in the second half of life. Now let us count down. Number 5, soft-serve ice cream from commercial machines, the hidden source of oxidized fats and microbial contamination. Soft-serve ice cream is everywhere. Fast food restaurants, frozen yogurt chains, amusement parks, county fairs. It looks lighter than regular ice cream. It is aerated, it melts faster, it feels less indulgent. And for exactly those reasons, millions of adults over 60 consume it without a second thought, often believing they are making a more moderate choice than ordering a full scoop of regular ice cream. Here is what nobody is telling you about soft serve specifically. The problem is not primarily the ice cream itself. It is the machine it comes from. Commercial soft-serve machines operate at temperatures between 18 and 23 degrees Fahrenheit, significantly warmer than the storage temperature of hard-packed ice cream. At these temperatures, the partially frozen product sits in the machine's barrel for extended periods, sometimes hours between servings, in conditions that are thermally and microbiologically precarious. A 2019 investigative study published in the International Journal of Food Microbiology tested 282 commercial soft-serve machines across multiple food service establishments and found that 36% contained coliform bacteria, a marker of fecal contamination, and 25% contained pathogenic bacterial strains including Listeria monocytogenes and Staphylococcus aureus. For a healthy 25-year-old, a low-level bacterial exposure from a soft-serve machine may produce no symptoms at all. For an adult over 70 whose mucosal immune barrier in the gut is already compromised and whose innate immune response fires at approximately 40% of its youthful efficiency, the same exposure can trigger a significant gastric inflammatory event or worse, a genuine foodborne illness with serious systemic consequences. Listeria specifically is 14 times more lethal in adults over 65 than in younger adults, according to CDC surveillance data. But the microbial risk is only half of the soft-serve problem. The extended exposure of dairy fat to the warm temperatures inside the machine barrel, combined with the aeration process that incorporates oxygen into the mixture, promotes fat oxidation. Oxidized dairy lipids generate free radicals and lipid peroxidation byproducts that, when consumed, add directly to the oxidative burden in your bloodstream. After 65, your antioxidant defense systems, superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione peroxidase, are operating at reduced capacity. You have less biological ammunition to neutralize incoming oxidative stress. Oxidized fat from a soft-serve machine is not a trivial insult to an aging body. It is a measurable source of accelerated cellular damage. The synergy tip here is simple. If you are going to have ice cream, choose hard-packed varieties stored at consistent deep freeze temperatures and purchased from operations with high turnover where product is not sitting for days. The physics of deep freezing are on your side in ways that soft serve's warm barrel system fundamentally is not. Number 4, ice cream containing carrageenan, the additive hiding in products labeled all natural. Carrageenan is a thickening and stabilizing agent derived from red seaweed. It sounds natural. It is natural in origin, and it is present in a startling number of ice cream products, including many marketed as organic, clean label, or minimally processed, because it is approved for use in certified organic foods and requires no synthetic chemical processing to extract. Here is the problem. The biological effects of carrageenan on the gut, specifically the degraded form called polygenin that forms during digestion, have been studied extensively, and the findings are deeply concerning for anyone with an already compromised gut lining. A comprehensive review published in Environmental Health Perspectives documented that carrageenan exposure in animal and cell culture models consistently produced intestinal inflammation, increased intestinal permeability, and activation of inflammatory signaling cascades, including NF-κB, one of the master switches of systemic inflammation in the human body. A study published in Frontiers in Pediatrics found that carrageenan disrupted the gut microbiome, specifically reducing populations of beneficial lactobacillus strains and promoting the growth of inflammatory bacterial species. And critically, a paper published in the journal Nutrition and Cancer documented that carrageenan promoted the growth and invasiveness of certain cancer cell lines in laboratory conditions, findings significant enough that the European Union restricts carrageenan use in infant formula, despite its approved status in adult food products. For adults over 60 whose gut lining is already more permeable, whose microbiome is already less diverse, and whose inflammatory baseline is already elevated, the regular consumption of carrageenan-containing ice cream is adding a specific and documented inflammatory insult to a system that is already under strain. The infuriating part is where carrageenan hides. It is present in numerous organic ice cream brands, in many non-dairy alternatives marketed to health-conscious consumers, and in reduced-fat ice cream products where it is used to replicate the creamy texture lost when fat is removed. Read every label. Look specifically for carrageenan in the ingredient list. If it is there, regardless of what health claims appear on the front of the package, put it back. The synergy tip: the cleanest ice creams from an ingredient standpoint have the shortest ingredient lists. Cream, milk, sugar, eggs, and natural flavoring. That is all real ice cream needs. Every additional ingredient, every stabilizer, every emulsifier, every thickener is a signal that the manufacturer is compensating for something, either poor quality ingredients or an inferior manufacturing process. Number 3, Low-fat and reduced-fat ice cream, the category that trades one problem for three worse ones. This is the ice cream that has been most aggressively marketed to health-conscious adults for the past 30 years. Low-fat. Reduced-fat. Light. The implication is always the same. You are making the responsible, heart-healthy choice. The research says otherwise. Emphatically, when manufacturers remove fat from ice cream, they face an immediate problem. Fat is what gives ice cream its creamy texture, its mouthfeel, its sense of richness and satiety. Remove the fat and you are left with an icy, thin, unsatisfying product that nobody will buy. So they compensate with three categories of additions that are, for adults over 60, significantly more harmful than the saturated fat they replaced. First, sugar. Dramatically more sugar. Removing fat from ice cream destroys flavor. Fat carries fat-soluble flavor compounds and buffers the perception of sweetness. To compensate, manufacturers add substantial additional sugar. A typical reduced-fat ice cream contains between 25 and 35% more sugar per serving than its full-fat equivalent. For an adult over 60, whose insulin sensitivity has naturally declined with age, whose pancreatic beta cell function is reduced, and whose risk for type 2 diabetes is significantly elevated, this additional sugar load produces blood glucose spikes that a full-fat version would not, because the fat in regular ice cream slows gastric emptying and blunts the glycemic response. Second, artificial thickeners and stabilizers. The fat removal creates textural problems that require chemical solutions. Low-fat ice creams typically contain cellulose gel, cellulose gum, carrageenan mono and diglycerides, polysorbate 80, and carob bean gum, a chemical stabilizer cocktail that is entirely absent from traditional full-fat ice cream made with cream, milk, eggs, and sugar. Polysorbate 80 specifically has been studied in the context of gut health with alarming results. A landmark study published in Nature found that dietary emulsifiers including polysorbate 80 and carboxymethyl cellulose, both common in low-fat ice cream, disrupted gut microbiome composition, promoted bacterial penetration of the intestinal mucus layer, and induced low-grade intestinal inflammation in animal models at doses relevant to human dietary exposure. A follow-up human intervention study documented similar microbiome disruption within 2 weeks of regular emulsifier consumption. I want to pause here and speak to everyone watching. If you are finding this information genuinely important, and I believe you are because you are still here, please take 5 seconds right now and click the like button and subscribe to this channel. Every week I bring you research like this that is specifically designed for adults over 60. The YouTube algorithm only shows these videos to more people when you engage. Like, subscribe and share this with one person in your life who deserves to know what is in the food they are eating. Third, and most insidiously, the removal of dairy fat eliminates the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K2, naturally present in full-fat dairy. These are not trivial nutritional losses. For adults over 60 who are already at high risk of vitamin D insufficiency, already experiencing the arterial consequences of inadequate K2, and already dependent on vitamin A for mucosal immune function, choosing low-fat ice cream over full-fat strips away a meaningful source of these protective compounds in exchange for more sugar and more chemical stabilizers. The research on full-fat versus low-fat dairy and health outcomes has shifted dramatically in the past decade. A 2016 study in Circulation found that adults with the highest blood levels of dairy-specific saturated fatty acids had a 43% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes over 15 years compared to those with the lowest levels. The fat in full-fat dairy appears to be metabolically protective in ways the low-fat dietary guidelines of the 1980s and 1990s never anticipated. A patient I will call Richard, 68 years old, retired accountant from Denver, Colorado, came to me convinced that his low-fat diet was protecting his cardiovascular health. He had switched to low-fat versions of every dairy product 15 years earlier on his previous physician's advice. His blood work told a different story. His triglycerides were elevated. His HDL was low. His blood sugar control was deteriorating toward prediabetes. His gut health was poor. We reviewed his diet carefully. The low-fat ice cream he consumed several times a week, believing it was a responsible treat, was delivering 32 grams of sugar per serving alongside a stabilizer cocktail his gut was clearly struggling with. We switched him to a small portion of high-quality full-fat ice cream made with clean ingredients twice a week. Within 4 months, his triglycerides had dropped significantly and his fasting glucose had improved. He told me, "I spent 15 years doing the wrong thing and thinking I was being careful. That is exactly the trap that low-fat marketing set for an entire generation. Number 2, ice cream containing high fructose corn syrup, and why fructose specifically is so devastating for the aging liver. High fructose corn syrup appears in the ingredient lists of the majority of commercially produced mass-market ice cream brands in the United States. It is cheaper than sucrose, regular table sugar, and it produces a smoother texture in frozen applications, making it the sweetener of choice for large-scale ice cream manufacturers producing at low price points. The biological distinction between fructose and glucose metabolism is one of the most important and least publicly understood stories in nutritional science. And for adults over 60, it is critical. When you consume glucose, from regular sugar, from starch, from most carbohydrates, it enters your bloodstream and is available for uptake by every cell in your body. Insulin is released. Cells use it for energy. The process is distributed across your entire body. Fructose is metabolized almost entirely in the liver. It bypasses the insulin signaling that governs glucose metabolism. And at the quantities present in a standard serving of HFCS-sweetened ice cream, it overwhelms the liver's capacity for normal fructose processing, triggering a metabolic pathway called de novo lipogenesis, the conversion of fructose directly into fat inside liver cells. The consequences for adults over 60 are particularly severe. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the accumulation of fat inside liver cells driven substantially by excessive fructose consumption, now affects an estimated 25% of adults over 60 in the United States, according to data published in the Journal of Hepatology. It is the most common chronic liver condition in the developed world, and its consequences extend far beyond the liver itself. Fatty liver impairs the organ's ability to regulate blood sugar, metabolize medications, produce the proteins that maintain immune function, and clear the inflammatory compounds that drive accelerated aging throughout the body. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that fructose consumption above 50 grams per day, achievable through multiple daily servings of HFCS-sweetened foods, was significantly associated with elevated triglycerides, elevated uric acid, increased visceral fat, and worsening insulin resistance. After the age of 65, when liver volume has typically decreased by 20 to 40% and hepatic blood flow has slowed significantly, the organ is less equipped to handle fructose loads than it was at 40. Identifying HFCS in ice cream labels requires only reading the ingredient list. It will appear as high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup. Any ice cream where this appears before the third or fourth ingredient contains it in amounts your aging liver should not be regularly processing. And now, number 1, the most harmful type of ice cream for adults over 60, the category that the research most clearly and consistently implicates in accelerated biological aging, and the one most aggressively marketed as the smart, healthy choice. Protein ice cream. The category that includes brands built around high protein content, low sugar, low calorie counts, and explicit messaging about fitness, muscle maintenance, and guilt-free indulgence. These products have exploded in popularity among health-conscious adults over the past 5 years. And for adults over 60 specifically, the research on their primary sweetening system should give every single one of their consumers serious pause. The vast majority of protein ice cream products achieve their low sugar and low calorie counts through the use of a combination of sugar alcohols, primarily erythritol and xylitol, and artificial sweeteners, primarily sucralose, acesulfame potassium, and stevia in highly processed extract form. Each component of this sweetening system carries documented concerns for aging bodies. Together, they create a biological profile that makes these products, for adults over 60, among the most gut-disruptive frozen foods on the market. Let us start with erythritol. A landmark study published in Nature Medicine in 2023, one of the most significant nutritional findings of the decade, followed over 4,000 individuals and found that higher blood levels of erythritol were significantly associated with major adverse cardiovascular events, including heart attack and stroke. The association persisted after controlling for other cardiovascular risk factors. Laboratory follow-up studies found that erythritol enhanced platelet aggregation, the clumping of blood platelets that triggers clot formation, at concentrations achievable through the consumption of a single serving of erythritol-sweetened food. For adults over 60 who are already at elevated cardiovascular risk, whose platelet function is already altered by age, and who may already be on antiplatelet or anticoagulant medication, this is not a minor finding to set aside. Sucralose, the most common artificial sweetener in this category, has accumulated a troubling body of research over the past decade. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Toxicology and Environmental Health found that sucralose 6-acetate, a compound produced during the digestion of sucralose, exhibited genotoxic activity, meaning it caused measurable DNA damage in gut cells at concentrations consistent with normal dietary exposure. Separate research published in Frontiers in Nutrition documented that sucralose disrupted gut microbiome composition, specifically reducing beneficial lactobacillus and bifidobacterium populations in patterns that parallel the microbiome depletion already occurring naturally in adults over 60. And here is the cruelest irony of the protein ice cream category. It is marketed substantially to older adults concerned about muscle mass. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle tissue, is a genuine and serious concern for adults over 60, and protein intake is legitimately important for its prevention. But the gut microbiome disruption caused by the sweetener systems in these products directly impairs protein absorption. The gut bacteria that produce the short-chain fatty acids essential for gut lining integrity and that regulate the intestinal transporters responsible for amino acid absorption are precisely the bacteria that sucralose and erythritol deplete. A product marketed to help you maintain muscle may be simultaneously impairing your body's ability to absorb the protein it delivers. I think about a patient I will call Sandra, 72 years old, a retired nurse from Chicago, Illinois. She was disciplined, health-conscious, and meticulous about her nutrition. She consumed protein ice cream almost daily, believing the high protein content and low sugar were actively supporting her muscle health and her cardiovascular risk profile. When we ran her gut microbiome analysis, the diversity was severely depleted. Her gut inflammatory markers were elevated. Her CRP was high despite an otherwise excellent diet. When we traced the timeline, the microbiome deterioration had begun approximately 6 months after she started consuming protein ice cream daily. We removed it. We replaced it with a small portion of high-quality, full-fat traditional ice cream 3 times a week. Within 3 months, her microbiome diversity had begun recovering. Her inflammatory markers had improved. She told me, "I feel like I have been doing the healthy thing this whole time, and it was making me worse." That is the most important thing I want you to take from today's video. Harm in the food system does not announce itself. It hides in health marketing. It hides in protein counts and calorie totals and guilt-free messaging. It hides in ingredient lists that most people never read and in biological mechanisms that most people have never been told about. Here's the bottom line for adults over 60. If you are going to eat ice cream, and there is nothing wrong with enjoying it thoughtfully, choose a traditionally made full-fat version with the shortest possible ingredient list. Cream, milk, sugar, eggs, and real flavoring. Consume it in a modest portion. Enjoy it completely. And do so far less frequently than you consume the genuinely protective foods we have discussed on this channel: the fermented dairy, the omega-3 rich fish, the deeply colored vegetables, the whole foods that your aging biology was designed to thrive on. Avoid soft serve from machines with uncertain cleaning histories. Read every label for carrageenan and polysorbate 80. Set aside the low-fat versions that trade saturated fat for sugar and chemical stabilizers. Check ingredient lists for high-fructose corn syrup. And treat the protein ice cream category with the serious skepticism that the 2023 cardiovascular research on erythritol demands. You are not powerless in the grocery aisle. You are an informed adult who now has specific knowledge that most people, including many of the health-conscious adults who are consuming these products daily, simply do not have yet. If this video gave you something genuinely useful, and I believe it did, please subscribe to this channel right now. Every week I bring you evidence-based information specifically researched for adults over 60. Share this video today with someone you know who reaches for the protein ice cream or the low-fat option believing they are making the healthy choice. And tell me in the comments, which of these 5 categories surprised you the most? And are you going to read the ingredient label on your freezer's ice cream this week? I will be reading every single response. Thank you for being here.